This is the Storyworks Roundtable, where we have conversations about craft. Because becoming a successful author begins with writing a great story. You know that feeling you get in the dead of winter when everything seems gray and lifeless? When you feel like you haven't seen the sun in months and you're starting to think it will never return? Well, good news. The winter solstice is upon us. If you live in the Great White North, like I do here in Minnesota, you know what I'm talking about. It's the shortest day of the year, and it signals the return of the sun, the warming of the earth, and eventually spring. With all that light and joy comes renewed creativity, passion, and motivation to tackle your writing projects. In order to spread a little light on the darkest day of the year, I have a special offer for you. This week's podcast is sponsored by the Storyworks Fiction School, where you can find courses to take your storycraft to new levels, from understanding story structure to mastering character development. Right now, to celebrate the winter solstice, as well as the holidays and your New Year's writing goals, you can save 21% on any class at storyworksfiction.com. The discount code is Solstice2019. That's in all caps, so hit your caps lock and use Solstice2019 to save 21% on your next writing course at storyworksfiction.com. The offer expires at midnight Central Time on the 22nd, so you only have a few days to get this deal. In honor of December 21st, I'm giving you 21% off any course at storyworksfiction.com. Hello and welcome to this week's Storyworks Roundtable. Today, Kathryn, Robert, and I are going to talk about the writing-life balance and also do our year-end just check-in, because we started the year talking about our writing goals and did a couple of check-ins along the way. So why don't we start there and then move into how we manage to balance writing with the rest of our lives. Do either of you want to kick us off with how your year has gone? Gold stars all around.
No, gold stars for lots of words down, but not gold stars for finishing a book. So
yeah,
the daily writing has continued, and yeah, it'll be interesting when we come to talk to balance. Also, we started a full house renovation and I mean every single room, including breaking down walls and making new rooms and putting a laundry downstairs and changing lots of things. We're still in that. We're not in the middle of it anymore. We're at the tail end, but it's been extraordinarily disruptive. So for some of between July and October, I wasn't actually at home. I was working off a little laptop all the time, and that I found tricky. And finding my own space for that. Still got the words down every day, but it didn't give me any additional. I had no creative resilience. I could just barely get by. So it's interesting when, and I don't know, part of me was romantically thinking, oh great, I'll move out of home, won't have all those same home pressures of, keeping your own house going,
right?
Staying on someone else's hospitality. That'll give me all this time for writing, and actually it almost seemed to be the reverse.
Yes,
it always seemed to be like I just didn't have my head in the right place. It was not good.
Yeah, I get that. It's like when you go visit somebody and instead of relaxing, you feel like you're always kind of on duty. Can I help you with that? Can I do that? Should I be social? Should I keep you company? Am I, so.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah, I think I have kind of a similar report, Robert. I've been doing my daily writing. I've been very consistent there. I've gotten a ton of words down. Still longhand. I did get, a couple hundred pages typed up, but so much of what I've written is still longhand. I've even had to move on to a second 3-ring binder because the first one was
wow.
full. Yeah, even after taking out the typed pages. And so, gold star for just consistently writing, but not for completing a project or starting the variety of other projects that I had thought I would like to do. But I'll save expanding on any of that for our life balance piece of the conversation. And Kathryn, what's your update? How has your year gone?
I guess very similarly, like in terms of my overall goals, like you can't say that I checked the box, right? Mm-hmm. I didn't cross anything out. However, I feel like I've found my systems and I'm working really well. And I did a first draft that I thought was going to be 80K and it turned out to be 135.
Wow.
So just getting through that, and I'm like jazzed to go into the revisions. Like that feeling is so good that I'm okay with not having finished what I did, which again, we'll get into with the life balance thing. There's reasons behind that.
Right.
But yeah, so although the goals didn't get check marks, I did write a ton of words. I found really good systems. So it feels pretty good.
Good. Yeah, I'm happy you say it feels good, and that's kind of how I feel too. Like I don't need to make excuses for not checking all my boxes, because just getting the writing done consistently feels good. Yeah. So writing life balance, what have we been struggling with, and what strategies are we finding for creating balance, or at least maintaining writing time within our crazy or normal lives? I feel like everybody these days feels like their life is hectic or crammed full, or, it's kind of a cultural epidemic.
We all think we have to work all the time, 100% of ourselves on everything that we care about. So, yeah, it's hard to find that balance.
Yes, and comparisonitis is tricky as well, because I'm sure like you guys, you listen to or watch other podcasts or shows about authors. It's fascinating, and I love it. And occasionally you'll hear one where something, I get my even at 2,000 words a day, or I'm doing this, or 5 days a week I'm doing this, and then you hear about all the other things they're doing. They're a busy mother, or I should be doing that too. So you get the shouldas and the gonnas, and all plaguing my head. And I mean, as I said, I've been writing a ton. There's been words going down, but not on the novel. So at some point, and I'm being kind of nagged as well to do it in a good way, to carve out, to put myself first, basically,
right,
as opposed to the pleasing other people, the bringing the money in, the doing this, the doing that, and even down to things like household chores or making renovation decisions. They're all things that come at a cost if I don't write the novel. So it's certainly starting to get painful.
Yes.
Actually, I up from someone about 4 or 5 weeks ago. Who'd read book 1 and said, "When's book 2 coming?" Are you procrastinating? And then he sent me a TED video to watch, which I'd already seen before, about procrastinating, which is really funny. It's really good. I'll send you the link, Kathryn, so we can put it in the show notes, because it is very good. And it shows the type of pressure we put ourselves under, where you think, look, today I'll do 2,000, and you don't do it. And the next day, well, I'll just do 4,000 today. And then the next day, that's okay. I'll get a couple of chapters done by the end of the month, and then the year goes by. Maybe it's not the right book.
Right. I think I'm just burnt out on this book. I need a new book. Yeah. Yes, that learning to prioritize ourselves and our work as writers and artists is so critical to our productivity. I mean, I know there are writers who can run their writing as a business and really devote their 40 hours a week to producing books. But for those of us who have other jobs that are the bread and butter, and we can't do that, it's so easy to push aside the passion project, the creative work, the fulfilling, desired work.
And I think it also comes to, Stephen Covey's famous grid of, urgent versus important. And the thing about writing or any creative project is it's neither urgent nor even important in the big scheme of things. So I know in our hearts it's important. But when it comes to, looking after your child or making sure there's food in the fridge or cooking for everybody or having the friends over because you haven't seen them because you've had your head buried at your computer, it's very easy to deprioritize it. Well, that's okay. I'll do that when no one else is around, or I'll do that when these renovations are done, so it all becomes it'll happen when. And I think that's the biggest killer of ritualistic creative output, is to make it dependent on other things. It's not dependent on anything else, and you have to learn to be able to make it urgent and important for yourself first.
Right.
And I think that is a skill that very few people are able to latch onto easily, and most of us have to really train rigorously to get to that stage.
Right. It's, I think it relates to that notion of self-care. There's the idea of putting the oxygen mask on you before you put it on anybody else. And we all know if you don't exercise and keep yourself healthy, keep your immune system up, then you aren't going to be as good for the other people in your life. And I think we need to apply that same principle to our creativity, because if we feel driven to write, if that feels integral to our being and it's fulfilling to us, I know I'm not a happy, person. I'm not my best self if I'm not giving myself that time to be creative, even if I can only make it an hour a day, when ideally it would be 4 hours a day. I saw a coffee mug when I was out doing some Christmas shopping, and it said, I think it said, yoga does not take time, yoga gives time. And I was like, yeah, when I'm doing my yoga practice or whatever my, exercise routine happens to be in that period, I do have more time because I feel more energized. I have more mental clarity. And I want that mug with writing does not take time. Writing gives time, because the fulfillment piece makes me a better version of myself going forward into all of my other roles in life.
Yeah, isn't it a famous, it's probably a bad quote, of Winston Churchill's, that when he was asked about, all the money that's going to the arts and the creative departments, and shouldn't that be being put to war, he said, but if we take that away, what are we fighting for?
Yes.
And I think, that one way to think about it is, without people with a passion for producing creative content, we wouldn't even have things like Marvel movies, for example. So it's not just our little books getting out into the world. This is an important part of humanity. And if we lose it all in this big mayhem of constant busyness and having the latest phone or checking your social media or, all the things that really ultimately are not urgent and not important, but the giant corporations of the world want us to elevate and prioritize those things over and above our own creative, passion, heartfelt activity. So I think there's a big philosophical question there for me as well, about what I want to value in life. I mean, I don't spend a lot. I spend hardly any time on social media at all, and I don't watch television. So I'm okay that my time gets carved out well for my family and for me, but there's some sufferance in there where I'm not carving sufficient time out for my primary creative project, and that is poor.
Right. I was listening to a podcast with Marissa Peer, who is a therapist and hypnotist and kind of a thought leader in the self-development, self-help arena. And she was talking about people who devalue what they have to give to the world. They think it's not, it's not worthy of finishing and putting out there. And so this just inhibits your creation, your productivity, and also your sense of self and being out there. And she said, whatever your gift is, you have a responsibility to give it to the world. And whether your book is going to be read by 100 people or 1 million people, it doesn't matter. If that's your gift and what you're being called to do, you know, when we don't view it as our responsibility, when we devalue it, we devalue such a big piece of ourselves. And yeah, I think that's like, we need that attitude shift culturally, like you were mentioning the Churchill quote. I'm looking at Kathryn.
Yeah. You want to report on
yes, I know she's got deep thoughts to share with us.
As she balances a young child on
yes,
one knee.
Yes. So, Kathryn, how do you manage writing-life balance with Aria?
I know, right? Well, I think I've mentioned it a few times in the last couple episodes, and especially when we talked with Alina. But for me, it was a lot of realizing when I have the mental space to do it and then prioritizing that time. And I did have to make sacrifices like, I don't know, sleep. But
which might be dangerous in the long run.
I know, in the long run. But what I found is that in the evening, I'm not always even excited to relax. Like, I don't even, like, reading a book feels hard. Watching a movie feels hard. Like, I'm just so done that I can't even. Yeah. So to try and move my writing time to the end of the day, or, you know, some of the, thank you, yes, middle of the day minutes, was too hard. So in order to prioritize myself, thank you.
Yes, Aria is very excited about you moving that.
She is. She wants you to prioritize your writing.
I know,
your
totally.
responsibility, Kathryn. Mummy.
I had to.
Mummy.
Right? I had to do a couple of different things in order to even be a good mom sometimes, because my writing is so important, and also my health, that it, like, if I get up in the morning and I spend that hour writing before she wakes up, and then I do my yoga or my workout or whatever for the day, then by the time that, like, we're ready to start the day, like, I'm in such a better mindset. I got the stuff that I care about for me done and out of the way, so then I can focus on her or my family or teaching piano lessons and not feel like I'm already a failure for not finishing those
You're already behind,
words or that time, you know. And so for me, starting the day with my writing became something that then transformed the rest of my day into something that felt productive and useful, rather than like I'm already behind the 8 ball, or I'm never going to get this done.
Yes.
A failure already. So,
yeah. And I think identifying that time slot where you feel productive and charged up about the task at hand is crucial. I have to write first thing in the morning too, because the later the day gets, the less energy I have, and the more my mind is focused on left brain tasks. What do I need to do? Where's the laundry list? You know, who do I need to take care of? And yeah, doing it first thing is critical.
I think
I eliminated any sort of goal marker other than time. So
good.
I found that for myself, I couldn't say I have to get 1,000 words done today, because like Robert says, tomorrow if I didn't get all 1,000, it's going to be 1,800, or it's going to, or whatever that leftover was. So if I just said I'm writing for an hour and I sat my butt in this chair and no one else is awake and it's just me and my computer or my journal or whatever for an hour, then it didn't matter if I got 100 words or 1,500 words or had an amazing day and got 2,500 words. It didn't matter, because I did it and I took the time to spend the time on myself and write. I think eliminating that goal made a huge difference in the amount of effort I put in, even to the limited time that I had. Just funny the way your brain works sometimes.
Well, isn't it?
I think there's a big nugget in there, though, because we are driven to focus on endpoints, and it's not a bad thing because of cognitive dissonance. So, you know, if you want a shiny new black car, then you've kind of got to think about shiny new black cars. But and then you see them everywhere because of cognitive dissonance and reticular activating system firing up and all of that. That's all good. But I think one of the things that gets missed, especially in the writing process or any project that is multi-staged or requires a big time investment, you forget about inputs. And it's inputs that beget outputs. And a goal is an output. A goal is simply a result. So focusing on, I want to have 80,000 words done by November is all well and good. That's great, creates cognitive dissonance. But I think what you've done is you've said, I'm not going to even make the inputs have a goal. The inputs are just going to have a system. And so if you have a systematic way of inputting your workflow, and I'm kind of talking business terms here now, but basically you're throwing the words in at the front end, and it doesn't matter how many words as long as you do it every day for that amount of time. So ultimately that's what builds up it's building your creative muscle anyway, but it builds the routines and the rituals that become instinctive. And I think that's the way to get good writing done regularly, is to instinctively be at the point where you can't not do it. It is your input. You're not even thinking about the outputs. It's just what you do, like getting up and having breakfast. And I've struggled with that a great deal because, or not necessarily because, I see other writers who maybe began at a very early age, maybe when they were in primary or elementary school, and they always wrote stories, and so I didn't do that. And so I'm coming late in life to a practice of writing. And I think, and now I've done a lot. I've probably written 250,000 words over the last year at least, but none of them have been for my own fiction. So it's, I think, carving out that time for the inputs. And so I really like what you're saying in there about removing any attachment to the output, but just focusing on the inputs is really smart.
Yeah, and it's like the idea of the habit stacking. So by making the time the goal at a certain time frame, you build the habit and that creative muscle and the creative headspace you need as well. And eventually the book will get written that way, whether it's a 100-word day or a 2,000-word day. Just the fact that you wrote any words that day, you will get the book done, right? So, and by removing that date stamp goal, you eliminate so much of the pressure that leads to the fear of failure and the disappointment and the self-criticism and self-shaming that can happen when you set a goal that's like a keeping up with the Joneses goal instead of a fits my life goal.
And that's that thing that we're talking about, that life balance, writing life balance thing. That's where without that I could become so overwhelmed and paralyzed that it gets skewed one way or the other. My family suffers because I'm focusing too much on my writing, or my writing suffers because I just can't even get there because of all the other things that are going on. So it's finding that balance where one feeds the other and complements the other and works together with the other.
And also to remember that you only see one side of the equation for people who are posting on social media, for example. Oh, so cool, I hit bestseller on my first week of launch. Oh great, look, I got my 100th review. Oh, I'm hitting the end again for the 3rd time this year. So you're seeing and it's fantastic. I mean, it's inspiring. I'm not saying that people shouldn't do it, but if you make that your only activity, you're missing the inputs that went into it. And as you say, Kathryn, the balance in there. So you can get out of balance just by paying attention to the wrong things as well, which is, I think, tricky. And so, I wouldn't say I paid attention to the wrong things, but I haven't paid enough attention to putting me first, that's for sure. So that's definitely going to be a lesson that needs to get implemented.
Next week, we'll pick up this conversation where we left off, talking about balancing your writing life with the rest of your life. And don't forget to pick up your solstice savings at storyworksfiction.com. Thank you for listening to the Storyworks Roundtable. Find all our shows, show notes, and videos at storyworkspodcast.com.